Hi there, this is Axel. This is the second video to the How to Draw series, or ICanDraw. um, so right now we have three layers pretty much. There's a background layer, which is a light gray. There is a darker layer, which is, the shape of the figure that you're gonna draw. And then there's another layer, which is the lines on there. They're just guidelines. Those are the most important things to have. The guidelines are pretty much, gonna tell you how to draw, but you're not really gonna use them in the final drawing. They're just there. If you don't have them, or if you have them all like weird and not, accurate, they could throw off your drawing by a lot. So right now we're just using the burn and dodge tools, which are on the left hand side. You can technically just use the burn tool, and then if you press, I think, Alt, it switches it to the dodge, so you don't have to switch. And right now we're just drawing the eye, trying to get those valleys in. They're not going to be 100% accurate, but they're pretty close, and then we'll go back and edit them. And just in case you're wondering, this drawing did not take 32 minutes. It took days. It's just sped up, like, I think by 1,000 times. I don't know. That's what I said. But whatever. So right now the values are not 100% perfect. I think right now it's still too dark compared to the actual drawing. Most of the time people want to draw, out of their heads or whatever, out of their minds, instead of actually like looking at references, which I prefer to use references, just because if something is metallic, you'll know how metal looks as opposed to interpreting it. And I'm not saying you can't draw like out of your head or whatever, but it's always good to look at references, and a lot of people don't tend to do that. So yeah, use a reference whenever you can. Right now we are working on his head. I do have the guidelines in there, but they are set to a really low opacity, which is what you kind of want to do whenever you're drawing, because you don't want the guidelines to throw off your shadows or your highlights. I use the Wacom tablet for anyone who's interested. I used to draw with the mouse, but a tablet is so much better. I definitely recommend you getting it if you haven't gotten one. Eventually I do want to get a Cintiq, but those are super expensive, so not yet, but eventually. If you're using the burn and dodge tool, usually want to set it to a low opacity, unless you're doing like something super dark like the hair, which is what I'm doing now. But most of the time, setting it to a low opacity on a gray layer works perfectly fine. And actually, in this video, I think the last video we did it to where it was just gray. We're actually gonna add color this time. So if you're interested in learning about colors, or even if you have a black and white picture that is kind of old or whatever, and you wanted to put color in yourself instead of taking it to like a company or whatever that does that for you, you could do it by yourself. It's pretty simple. And now we're just working on his smile. This is my brother, by the way, just in case you didn't know, or which I'm pretty sure nobody knew. Yeah, he's my younger brother. We went to San Antonio for this picture. This was several years ago as well. Yeah, it's pretty fun. You went to SeaWorld. After seeing Blackfish, though, it definitely changes your opinion of SeaWorld. But I was younger and it was fun. So right now we're just working on his neck. like I said, these are basic shadows, which you always will go back and edit, but it's just to get the rough like shading in there, just to know your values, etc, etc, etc. If y'all are interested in knowing how to draw other stuff, definitely leave a comment on there. If y'all want to draw something aside from people, like, oh, I want to draw a dog, or I want to draw a toy or something, just to get like different textures, definitely leave a comment and I will see them, and we could try that, I guess. What else was I gonna say? I don't know. Oh yeah, feel free to skip around. Like, you don't have to watch this video, straightforward. Feel free. You can either like just watch it, or cut ahead, or go by sections. It doesn't matter to me, you know. It's all on your interests. But yeah, right now we're working on the shadows. I think I messed up on some of the guidelines, so he looks not like he does in the picture. But there's also another tool that you can use to fix those or make adjustments, which is the warp tool, or the liquefy thing, I guess. It's kind of like just warping things, and I do go back and adjust a lot of stuff. So the guidelines are very important, but sometimes you do go out of the guidelines, or they're not 100% accurate. So that tool definitely helps. Which is the tool I'm using now. Like, it was really quick because it's been sped up, but yeah, that's the tool that you kind of want to use. And right now I'm just working on the hair. I have the opacity for the burn and dodge, or the burn tool, set really high to do that. You don't want to set it to 100% black though, because if you try to lighten it, it'll mess up the pixels, and it'll give you artifacts, which is not a good thing. Artifacts are basically pixels that think they're the same color or whatever, so they clump up together and they just make these big blocky pixels. It's weird, but you usually don't want artifacts in your drawings. And I got a bag of Starburst, which I am eating. They're really good. I have to go to work soon, so I haven't eaten. I probably should. But I decided to do this video. So yeah. The hair, you kind of want layers in there. You just don't want it black with a few highlights. There are hairs that go in and out, like depth wise. So yeah. And the way I did the shirt, I completely just skipped over it. My bad. You do hue and saturation, and then first you select an area, and then you do hue and saturation, and then you bring the lightness down, or you could just change the brightness and bring that down, and then that'll give you a different shade based on the area that you have selected. So that's how I did the shirt, and then I just brought in some highlights. I didn't think that was a huge major step, and I do that eventually down the road as well, just in case you missed it. It was just to cut down on time, because this is a 32-minute video. I think the last video was like close to 50 minutes, and I thought it was kind of long. So hopefully this video was dropped down to a time limit that most people would watch. But I do want to cut it down even more eventually down the road. My friend threw out an idea of making multiple videos, but I don't know. I might try that as well, just to see. But I would rather have it just in one video. That way people could just watch it straightforward, and then move on to the next video or the next topic, as opposed to saying multiple parts. fabric, it's kind of hard to do for me, at least. Um, it's just difficult getting the highlights. I do go back and adjust them. But yeah, it's kind of difficult. Whenever you do the changing of the brightness or whatever, based on the area that you selected, it gives you really sharp angles, which depending on the picture, that might be fine, or you can go back and blur the edges so it uniforms nicely. I'm working on his hand right now, just adding shadows. It doesn't matter, well, I guess it does matter, but you don't necessarily need to get things 100% accurate. You can always go back and adjust things, and then as long as you have the face correct, more attention will go to the face than all the smaller details like fabric or fingernails or whatever. A face definitely tells somebody who is somebody. So just in case, you know, you're trying to get things 100% accurate, start with the face. Definitely get that down correct. I'm drawing this pig right now. I thought it wouldn't take that long because it's mostly white, but it does actually take quite a long time. The way I drew my brother, I was using the burn tool, but for the pig, since he's a lighter shade of gray, I switched it to the dodge tool, which just lightened things up. And then right now, for the shadows, I go back and do the burn tool. Those are the tools that I primarily use for gray drawings like this. You don't necessarily need to use the paintbrush tool because you have to go back and adjust, you know, the type of colors, which you could just use black, but I definitely just prefer the burn and dodge because it's so much faster on gray drawing. That's usually the best way to do things on a gray drawing. If you're starting off with a drawing with color, I probably wouldn't recommend that, just because it'll give you some weird color changes. So right now I'm just adding detail to the ear. Like I said, it doesn't need to be 100% accurate, just as long as it's pretty close. I don't do the detail on the hand until later. Probably should have added more detail in the final drawing, but I think a lot of the detail work should come at the very end, like all the scrapes and stuff on the statue, and then like super fine detail. I think it's more important just to get your base shadings correct, or you know, somewhat accurate. So yeah, I'm drawing this pig. I think I eventually make him a bit lighter because he still looks a bit too dark. And then I go back and adjust the hand. I think the hand was a bit tricky for me on this one, just because the way he had his hand, it just looked kind of weird. And then I go back and make it brighter, but definitely the burn and dodge tool are your best tools to use. And for anybody who doesn't use Photoshop, you can use toned paper, which it's like a gray, or you can make your own toned paper. Just get like if you have charcoal, just rub charcoal on white sheet of paper, and it pretty much does the same thing. But toned paper is a good way to start in this process. It's really simple. You just use black and whites for highlights. And if you're wondering about colored pencils, I definitely recommend Prismacolors. They are really expensive compared to regular color pencils, but they are really smooth. You can blend them very well, that you just can't do with regular color pencils. So yeah, I recommend them. So right now we're just adding a bunch of fine detail to the pig, which that could have came later, honestly, but I think there's some times where you just want to do fine detail. You don't really want to add, a bunch of simple highlights and shadows. Well, that's what I prefer, honestly. I prefer to do super fine detail. So right now we're just drawing the pig, making his leg brighter. I think we're like almost halfway into the video. Around 20 minutes, I think, is when, or maybe like 22, 25 minutes is when I start adding color. Whenever you add color, it's pretty much just the hue and saturation. Just saturate it, and then well, there's technically two ways that I like to do it. The hue and saturation, or you could just get a paintbrush and change the layer properties to overlay, and that to me gives you more control over the area that you want. So yeah, layer properties. Just finishing up the pig. It technically does take a longer time to do. I thought he'd be quicker, but I guess not. For if you missed how I did the shirt, because I did it really quickly, I do go back and change the scarf of the pig the exact same way, which I just changed the brightness. Well, I have an area selected, and then I change the brightness. It's a lot quicker than just doing burn and dodge, and it'll give you better like lines, I guess. Shadows definitely make an image look a lot better. They make it look more realistic. So I mean, like shadows that are being on a surface, not shadows on a person or whatever. So if you have a chance to make your shadows look correct, definitely try to do that. Don't just rush through them, because shadows do give an image a more realistic look, if there are shadows on the picture. Obviously there's sometimes when there's no shadows. I think this wood thing took me a while to do. If you're wondering how to do like wood texture, it's not too hard. It's just a bunch of lines going back and forth, pretty much. Like the wood grain, I guess. Right now I'm just adding the highlights. I think I'm kind of rushing through this. Like, I didn't see too much interest in this, but I do go back and add like more detailed parts to it. Right now I think his little, I don't want to say hooves. Is that what they're called? Hooves? Pig? Nails? They're technically nails. They're not as detailed as the image, so I do go back and adjust that. And then right now I'm doing the scarf. So pretty much just changing the brightness, or you could do it the hue and saturation and then just change the brightness from there. You want to have that area selected, make it bright, and then I did the exact same thing but made it dark, and then I'm cutting out the areas, so that is the white and dark, and then right now I'm adding the darkest parts, I think. Yeah. So that was a quick way to do that part. You always want to find, the easiest ways to do things. You don't necessarily have to go back and draw all that stuff and burn and dodge, or any other way that you would technically draw. But right now, for the highlights of the scarf, I am, burning and dodging. but that is an easy way to do stuff like that. You can do that on like fabrics or just different sections. I think my brother has a express design on a shirt or whatever, and I go back and do the exact same thing on there. So I'm about to finish the drawing. I just need to, do the bottom part, which was not the most interesting thing to do. Whenever I start a drawing, I usually like to draw the most interesting parts. Like, I start with the eyes because I think eyes are really interesting. Or the face, pretty much, because that not only is it interesting, but it's also a challenge too, just to make them look like that person. But then whenever you start to get to more tedious parts like, oh, wood or whatever, they're not super interesting to draw. So I don't technically put a lot of detail in there, but you can if that's what you think is interesting. But yeah, right now I'm adding details because that part of the wood was kind of interesting, I guess, and all the scratches and stuff. And like I said before, feel free to skip through. You don't have to watch the entire thing straightforward. This part is not the most interesting. It's just a bunch of detail work on the wood, then making areas brighter, darker. I'm working on his leg right now. It's kind of dark, so you go back and make it dark. A good opacity range to have on the burn tool, maybe like a 3 or 2. You usually want to have it low, really low, and then just go back and give it multiple paintbrushes, or multiple strokes, I guess. And then right now I'm just doing some weird design. Like, I didn't really care that much for the design. I didn't want to make it super 100% accurate, so I just kind of like roughed it out. Didn't really care that much. If you want to, you can, or depending on the drawing that you're doing, you can. It's up to you, but I just kind of like went through it really quick. But right now I am doing the step that I did for the scarf, just changing the brightness and then adjusting it. So right now I'm giving it like shadows and stuff just to make it look more like how it's supposed to be on the shirt. And then whenever you do that, you could go back and change the layer properties to overlay, and it should match the shadows that you have underneath. And right now I'm just doing the design on the shirt. It's not super 100% accurate, it's just super rough, but close enough to where like it looked like the design, and it'll look like the picture in the end, kinda. So if you want to make the letters more correct, you can. Obviously I'm just kinda like rushing through it. So yeah, it's 23 minutes. I think I started the color process in a bit. I'm pretty much almost done with the drawing. It looks kind of like him. And right now we get to adding color. So there's two ways: the hue and saturation, or the overlay on a new layer. Adding in color, have to have it on a new layer, and then you just go in with the paint brush, and then you just add color. Either way works fine. The paintbrush way is definitely a good way to like just go in and add color. If you do the hue and saturation, that's more for like bigger areas, but you can go back and adjust things. Trying to get a color that kind of matches his skin. And then right now for like the red tones, I do use the overlay way. Put it on a new layer, draw, and then have the layer properties to overlay. If you do, I think, like let's say you started off with like a brown skin tone, and then if you do like a purple color, it comes out like reddish, kind of. And if you do red, it turns into like orange. So like a purple color would work fine for like blemishes on the skin, or like red or pink pigmentations. So right now we're just trying to, get the colors correct. It may take some time just for y'all to do that. If something comes out kind of red, you can always, if you have it on a new layer, which you should have it on a new layer, you can erase with the low opacity, or you can just change the layer opacity down if it's too much. If it's not enough, but you don't really want to go back and redraw the color, or you lost the color that you were using, you could just duplicate it and then add it again. Color process does take some time, and usually in skin color you don't want to have just a brown color, because that's not typically what you would have in a skin color. Like, you do have reds, you do have greens, you have yellows, and sometimes you have blues depending on the picture. So definitely mess around with the colors and see what you get. Try to make it 100% accurate, or not 100. Well, yeah, I guess try to make it as good as you can. Right now I did the hue and saturation way for the pig, since he is bigger and he's just more of a uniform color. And then right now I'm adding the pigments, like the pink colors to the pig. I think it was like a purpley color, like a pinkish purple. And then I have the overlay way to do things on this way. It gives you more control. And for this pig, like, there is yellows, but there's also pinks, blues, and greens. So definitely, if you are drawing this picture, or if you're drawing a picture somewhat similar, try to add different colors in there. Don't just make it, a uniform color, because that's not the most realistic way, I guess. And like I said, right now I like to draw hyperrealism or realism, whichever. But if y'all have any other ideas, like if y'all want to do like a comic book drawing, or whatever kind of drawing, just let me know in the comments. We can go over that step. Right now I'm doing the hue and saturation way for the scarf. I just had an area selected, and then you go back and erase, or you could select it with the wand, but that to me is more of a, like, it's a longer step, and then you have to make it more accurate. So I don't really like that step, so I just like erasing. To me it's quicker. And then I think I overlay it in the end. I don't just leave it normal as the layer properties. Let's see, I'm almost finished with the scarf. I think there was an area missing next to his thumb, which I completely forgot about. And then right now I'm changing. I do have the overlay and the regular normal, and then I'm just balancing those out to make it look more like the picture. And then add more shadows. But so far that pig looks pretty good. It looks pretty, accurate. And then the wood, which does this take a long time? I don't think so. You do the hue and saturation, and then you just go back and erase. Sometimes the erasing process works better, just because the way that light bounces off certain objects, it gives color to that. Like, let's say you have a green shirt on and it's sunny, and you put your arm right next to the green shirt, your arm will have some green in there, just because how the way light bounces off certain objects. And then since the image was gray, for all those like scrapes and stuff on the wood, you could just erase it. You don't have to technically draw gray on there, which is what I did. I went back and just erased. That works for the bands on the barrel as well. But I think I do put some blue in there as well, because there is blue. So yeah, it's pretty good so far, the picture. I mean, it's not 100% there yet, but it's coming out pretty good. What else? I think while I was drawing, I was trying to decide if I should have drawn the background, but I didn't want to. I'll draw the background for the next picture, for sure. The way I wanted to do these pictures, I wanted to do the first one, black and white, and then this one, add color, and then the next one to be like a full image. But, you know, just to show the steps and processes. So if you've been trying to keep up, the first one you should have, you know, learned burn and dodge, you know, and then this one it's more of the same, but then you throw in color as well, and then the next one just trying to get things more accurate. But if you have any ideas on drawings or whatever, just let me know. It's 12:06. Gotta go to work in like 2 hours, which I really don't want to, because I hate my job. But right now I'm adding just final steps, just trying to make things look more like the image. We're pretty much done with the color, so it's just more about adjusting stuff, making things brighter or darker with the burn and dodge, warping some stuff just so it's more accurate. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it with the drawing. I'm done, but it looked pretty good. So yeah, if you liked it, you know, definitely like the video. If you have any comments, comment and subscribe. There's a Facebook link on the page. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just let me know.